and with all of you who are all leaders in this work.
So we're going to go ahead and get it started, and it's our honor today to introduce LaJune Montgomery Tabron, President and CEO of the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, and Rip Rapson, President and CEO of the Crescent Foundation.
Good afternoon.
We had to do that for about an hour before we got it just right. I'm going to step aside and let you speak.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll start, and just want you to know how honored we are to have all of you here this afternoon. I really want to thank Mayor Duggan for being here this evening. We just have come to really appreciate your leadership for the city, and you are always there when we ask of you, so thank you so much for being here. Also, thank you, Wendy and Allie, for the wonderful introduction for both Rip and I. And I'd also like to just thank the steering committee members. We just had our first meeting, and I just want all of our steering committee members to please stand quickly so we can see who we have joining us today. And finally, thank all of you. I know you're here because you share the passion for children's success and their early years and their development in those years. And you share that passion with all of us. And I thought I'd just start by sharing a personal story about myself. Many of you know me as the president of the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, but more importantly, I'm a native Detroiter. I grew up on the east side of Detroit, and I was fortunate to be born in a family with 10 children. And I happen to be number 9 of 10 children. And I want you to know that I feel that I was totally blessed, because as soon as I could open my eyes and say a word, my siblings allowed me to play with them. And we played school. We played school every day, every waking hour, and we loved it. So by the time I entered kindergarten, I could read, I could write, I could actually write in cursive. In fact, my teacher told me that I was a little bit of a distraction because I would write everyone's name in cursive and give it to them every day. But my sister, the next oldest sister, was 5 years older than I was. And she would come home from school and teach me everything she learned. So by the time I entered kindergarten, I had already memorized the books. I had memorized the math problems. And I was fortunate enough to excel in school because of that. And all we're saying in this entire effort around Hope Starts Here is that every child in the city of Detroit deserves that type of an intervention from the day they're born, and maybe even before, and all throughout their educational career, but particularly in those early developmental years. And I want to tell you that back then, even though I'm not that old, but back then, I'm sure that my family, my siblings, didn't have a 5-star QRS RIS rating. So I want us to really think about how we can instill quality in this effort, because they were of quality. And they were also my family, people who cared and loved and nurtured me. And what we know about this work in developing children is it takes family engagement first and foremost. And that's one of the things that we will hold up in this effort. But it also takes trained teachers, it takes funding streams that work and are supportive, and it takes systems with great handoffs from one point of development to the next. And that's all part of what we think about when we say hope starts here. And the last thing I like to say is we know the urgency of this work. It couldn't be more important for us to do this now and to do it well. There are things on the horizons for our children, and we have to make sure that they are held up and ready. We know, for example, that there's a new legislation in this state that says if children aren't ready by 3rd grade, that they will be retained. We don't want that for any child in the city of Detroit. And right now, 1 of 10 children would be ready. So we have work to do here, and it is serious work, and we must extend every effort we can for those children. And finally, what we know is that, of course, it's about the child, but it's also about the parent and the family. We know that when we survey mothers and parents, workforce stability increases when their children are in appropriate early childhood settings. So this is important for the entire economy, for this city of Detroit and for the state of Michigan. And we can see real dollars. We actually produced a report that says that we would generate over $16 billion if we were to just have every working citizen receiving equal opportunities and equal pay of those in the majority. And so that's our work. That's my passion, and I know that's also Rip's passion. And I'd like to introduce Rip Rapson to you, but I first want to just tell you a little bit about the energy that he brings to any conversation. So I've been in philanthropy for about 30 years, and there was a time when I used to know the Kresge Foundation as bricks and mortar. But that changed when Rip Rapson came to Kresge. And I want you all to know that it changed for the city of Detroit, because he embraced Detroit as if he were a native. And so as a native Detroiter, it's an honor for me to work alongside of a partner that has the same energy and passion as I do about changing conditions for the city. And so I introduce to you Rip Rapson.
Well, thank you, Lucian. That sort of takes my breath away. So let me reciprocate. It's always a good thing when 2 large philanthropic institutions can come to a single view of a set of priorities and a set of possibilities. But this is an extraordinary moment, I think, in the trajectory of our community, because the Kellogg Foundation is respected nationally like no other foundation in issues having to deal with kids and families, and particularly in the early years. And having watched our 2 staffs work together over these last number of months, it's quite clear that that kind of commitment comes from a very deep place institutionally at Kellogg. And I wasn't quite sure, frankly, where that had come from. It comes from the founder's mission. It comes from the excellence of the staff. But then, for the first time, I had a chance to spend real time with Lejeune, and it becomes very clear where that passion and that commitment and that integrity comes from. She is quite simply one of the most remarkable leaders anywhere in philanthropy. She is a gift for this state, and we're just honored to be associated with her. So thank you, Lejeune. Now, as Wendy said, I believe that today is truly a watershed moment for Detroit. All of us here have been working for a long time, in one way or another, to make Detroit and its neighborhoods better places to live. And yet we know that our collective investments and our energies ultimately hinge on making Detroit a world-class place to raise a family. Today we're here because we believe that Detroit can be exactly that kind of place. through our pool of expertise, our willingness to ask tough questions, and our relentless pursuit of finding answers together. Among you in the audience are leaders of health systems, early childhood educators, government officials, leaders of community organizations, and maybe most importantly, I think unquestionably most importantly, parents of young children. You're here because, like Lejeune and me, you understand that early childhood development is a critical part of what will make Detroit great, now and in the longer term. You recognize that when we work together and listen deeply to one another, we can surface ideas for what's possible, far better than when a lone planner sits in a room by herself. So thank you for committing your leadership and your time to this effort. To all of you in the room, please know that every single one of you is absolutely vital to the success of this effort. I want to just take a very quick moment and paint a picture of what I think is possible here. Other cities have traveled this road before us. We've seen this come to life in New York City for universal preschool and in Minneapolis for high-quality early learning systems. We've seen it in Boston with its focus on quality that has led to some of the highest pre-K quality ratings in the country. And we've seen it in Philadelphia, where they've raised a very innovative new public financing system for early childhood development through a tax on sugary beverages. Palm Beach and Florida has developed a shared data and services model that's coordinating care and allowing the community to continuously evaluate progress. I could go on and on. You can look at Seattle, you can look at Philadelphia, as I mentioned, you can look at Pittsburgh. These are people who are in places that are absolutely breaking the mold. And they are great examples for us, but this is Detroit. And this effort will be all about what's right for Detroiters. With Detroit's landmark hustle and with your support, there's no reason we can't add our name to the list of cities that are leading the nation in young children's outcomes. So why is Kresge sticking this flag in the ground? At Kresge, our mission is to improve opportunity for low-income people throughout America. We've worked in that mission in Detroit by investing in city infrastructure, in transit, in greenways, in neighborhood projects, and in the arts and cultural institutions and artists who live here. And this year, we began in earnest to add early childhood to the mix because we know that it is the linchpin to a full and complete Detroit turnaround. And while we're making investments already in facility renovations and developments, we know that alone is not going to change outcomes for kids in our town. It must be a part of a larger effort, a coordinated plan to ensure early childhood development needs are met for every child in Detroit from day one. And that's why Hope Starts Here matters so much to me, to Kresge, and I hope to you. Over the next few months, Hope Starts Here will listen to parents, businesses, child education experts, and many others to ensure children are born healthy, are prepared for kindergarten, and are on track for success by third grade and beyond. We'll look at the key issues that families face. We think these issues include the early childhood workforce and talent, whole child well-being, facilities, program and service quality, systems financing, and the role of philanthropy. And in a moment, we're going to have the opportunity to explore all of these areas in more detail. There'll be quite a few ways for all of you to participate in the coming months, and there'll be work for you. We need your best ideas, so please get ready to roll up your sleeves. You can let your networks know that they can find more information and ways to engage on our Hope Starts Here website and on the Facebook page. We want to hear from thousands of Detroit residents, parents, caregivers, community and civic organizations, and business leaders. So we talked a lot today at the Stewardship Board meeting about the importance of connecting all of the dots politically and otherwise. And someone pointed out that in this town, in many ways, all roads really do lead to Mayor Duggan. And that's a good thing, because in many ways, every single thing that the mayor has done in one way or another touches the welfare of kids and families, whether it's a home mortgage program, whether it's the rerouting of bus systems, whether it's better lighting, whether it's the remediation of blight, you name it, Mayor Duggan has been all over it. We heard someone earlier today, before we began, saying how he has earned the trust, the respect, and the gratitude of every single Detroiter. I'm here to tell you that that is true, I think, in ways that we can't even begin to imagine. He has been a bedrock of effectiveness, but I think in many ways even more a bedrock of integrity and decency. So it's my pleasure to welcome Mayor Duggan.
Thank you, Lejeune and Rip. You know, one of the things that everybody here who's a parent knows, and you see this over and over, is if you fall on hard economic times, your income's been cut, you got to cut back. The last place parents cut is their children. They take care of their children first and make sacrifices every place else. In the city of Detroit, we've done just the opposite. In the last decade or so, every time there's cuts to the city, what goes first? It's services to the kids. It's closing the rec centers. It's not cutting the grass in the parks. It's just not that important. It's closing schools and not funding the school system. And on the preschool side, I mean, it's been amazing. The city disbanded virtually its entire public health department, but in the role the city used to play in preschool education walked away from, but it got so bad that a couple of years ago, the Detroit Public Schools, under the emergency manager, forgot to apply for the Head Start funding. That's how far we had fallen in the needs of our youngest children. When I was running the Detroit Medical Center and we'd have 4,000 or 5,000 babies a year born in Huntsville hospitals, and the doctors got together and felt that the need to encourage parents to read to their children was such, they started a program where we started giving out books when the babies were delivered to take home. And you say, where are we as a community when the hospital is the one giving out the books and telling parents to read to their children? And so it has been a deeply troubling aspect of the city. We've tried to attack it from a lot of different directions, and from my side, we started a program we called, right off the bat, Make Your Date, which is the medical protocols for pregnant moms to maximize the chance they carry their baby to term are well known. But we have doctors who practice in a whole range of practices and went up on the latest advances and didn't necessarily follow them. And so with a program that was run by Dr. Sonia Hassan from the NIH right up the street, was so successful that last week in Rome, she did an international presentation on Detroit's success on Make Your Date, reducing preterm birth in this city, giving these children a chance to start healthy. That's how far we had to start. Now, Dr. Abdul El Sayed, our health director, who's bringing all these services back into the city of Detroit in a very aggressive way. If you haven't met him, he's a force of nature, the youngest public health director in America, and I think the most energetic. And we're about to embark on a program we're going to call Sister Friends, which I can't say too much about because I don't want to spoil his announcement, but basically it is a nationally proven model where pregnant women have a mentor who is trained on not only the best care pre-birth, but also issues like breastfeeding and how to raise your baby. And when I talked to Lejeune about this, she says, you've got to put reading to these children and getting them started into your Sister Friends curriculum. And so now, before we even got started, Lejeune has started to influence where we're going there. And then the question is, what happens until these children get to school? Who is stepping in there? And when Lejeune and Rip first approached me on this and said, we've got to do something about this, I'm kind of obsessed about reading literature. And here's what the literature says on pre-K education. Quality preschool makes a huge difference in school and the rest of your life. And as I said, it's not that preschool does, it's very specific. It's quality preschool. You can't just run a preschool program and have results, which means if we're going to get into this and spend this kind of time, there has to be assurance that we've got the infrastructure to do this in a quality way. And Lejeune said, of course, I wouldn't do it any other way. And she and Rep spent a great deal of time, made a real commitment, and are coming at this with the kind of resources that we need. We are going to do this in a first-class way. And we are evolving from a city, from a community that for far too long neglected its children, to now being a city that is valuing these children and giving them the kind of start to life they deserve. And I'm so proud to be here with Rip and Lejeune, and just want to say to them, thank you very much for your commitment.
Yes, it's us again. The Wendy and Ellie show. Actually, it's not a show, it's just a commercial. No social movement is complete these days without a Facebook page and without a website. And so I invite you to join us at Hope Starts Here, Detroit, which is the website address, or look us up on Facebook. But first I want just to say thank you again to Rip and Lejeune for their leadership of this, to get this effort launched, and to the mayor. So please join me in thanking them, all three of them. Oh, and don't forget we have a hashtag. Gotta have a hashtag. Hashtag Hope Bill. Hope Bills. Hope Bills.
So I also have a number of thank yous I need to and want to make. First and foremost, I want to thank, I think I saw her, Dr. Tanya Matthews. Yes, thank you for hosting us in this wonderful facility. And I'm trying not to let this crash dummy unnerve me here. Yes, but thank you for having us this afternoon. Also want to thank Lejeune, Rip, and Mayor Duggan for kicking us off on a great start. Hope Starts Here is administered by IFF, and I think I saw Kirby Burkholder in the audience. IFF is a regional community development financial institution, CDFI as we like to call them. And FSG and Early Works are partner organizations providing the engine, the project support, management, strategic communications, and community engagement support to this effort. So there are a number of great organizations and partners working to power this work. I'd like to now introduce Dr. Lauren Smith, who will come to the podium. And Lauren is from FSG, one of the consulting teams that will be working with the Hope Starts Here board to guide us through what happens next.
Wendy and Allie, and thank you to all of you all for coming out for this fabulous announcement and to spend this rest of our afternoon together. So as you may have heard, I'm a physician. I'm actually a pediatrician, which means I've spent the last 20 years working with children and their families. And so this work that we're talking about engaging in is not just an intellectual exercise for me, but a deeply personal and emotional one, because I think it's, once you start to work with children and families, it gets in you, and it really provides you the energy to keep going. So I'm so excited to be part of this work, and so excited that so many of you are here. What we're going to do next for the rest of our time together really are a couple things. One is we're going to engage in a little information gathering from you, which is we're going to ask you to text. We're going to get a number up on the screen. We're going to ask you to, here's one time where you can actually pull out your phone and you don't have to be surreptitious about it, because we're asking you to do it. And to text three words or adjectives for what you are looking for, what you think we can have in Detroit for our children. And so you can do 1, 2, or 3 words. What is your vision for the early childhood system here in Detroit? So you see the number, you go to that number and you text what the words are, and then as soon as you start to do it, we're going to see those words come up here. So we can do that throughout the time, so you all can get started with that. Then after that, what we're going to do is ask you to go on a journey through a series of stations around the room that describe the areas of interest, the areas of action that we're going to engage in from Hope Starts Here. And for each one of these 6 areas, there's information displayed there that describes the many assets on which you can build the work here in Detroit, as well as the important opportunities where there are things that we can and must do better. And we're asking you, as you go through this journey, to lend your insights, to lend your input, to add, to tell us what's missing, to tell us who might need to be involved, to share sources of information or data that we might not have included, but also to tell us what we might not have thought about yet. So, and as you go around your journey, in your packet, if you open up and you look, there's a passport. And what we're asking you to do is stamp your passport at each one of the stations as you get around there. And then for those of you who get to at least 4 of the stations, there's a treat waiting for you. Because we know that all people work with incentives, even adults. And so we have a treat waiting for you to get around to seeing the different journeys. So how are we doing with our words? Equitable. Equitable seems super important. Comprehensive, quality, justice, parents. Wow. So this is fun. So this will be able to, you can keep doing this throughout the time and we'll see this move, but it gives you a sense of what other people are thinking about and not just you. And clearly there's some real themes there. Oh, by the way, the more a word is put in, the bigger it is. So that's why equitable is in the center and is so large. So that tells you how you all are thinking about it. So thank you so much for participating, for coming. What we're not going to do is ask you to go on your journey. There's 2 of these stations here, and then there are 4 around the perimeter back there. So you don't have to start at any particular area. You can just go and mingle, meet people. I'm asking for you to look for the folks that Lejeune and Rip asked to stand up who have the buttons. Those are folks that are on the stewardship board and other folks that have been involved in this. So ask them questions, tell them what you're thinking, and just participate and really let us know how you're feeling. So thank you so much. We'll go around and do that, and then we'll come back towards the end. One last thing I will mention is that also in your packet, there's a question card. So if you have questions about the initiative, about what's happening, about who's involved, jot those down and hand them to any of the folks with a button. We'll collect them and then we'll come back and we'll answer some of those at the end of the afternoon. Thanks very much.